Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I brought on Tony Watley. Tony, welcome.
Thank you, Heather. Glad to be here and looking forward to sharing some value with your guests.
Give us a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
I live in Houston, Texas, and I am a business mentor, not a coach. I actually have had experience running and creating businesses, and I help people scale 7- and 8-figure companies, really from their ideas and their concepts. And what I really like to focus on is people who have busy professional careers that want to create a business on the side.
Well, and you shared with me, you used to work in corporate, and actually we were both in oil and gas industry, but kind of that monotonous routine and so many ups and downs. And, what gave you the nudge to take the leap and go do your own thing?
I basically was 25 years in oil and gas, project management, engineering background, and I was really good at the corporate games. I got into middle management working for the major operators, but then I decided that as I was in my 40s, I got tired of the layoffs that our industry has had. Every 5 to 7 years, there was a downturn, and they basically just start cutting off all the people. So I wanted to make sure that I'm going to go to speaker here so you don't get echoes into your podcast. So I wanted to make sure that I was building more something of parachute per se, to just make sure that I had some kind of security to get away from having my career be based on somebody else's decision.
Well, and actually when I worked in securities law, so back in 08, 09, we went through 3 rounds of layoffs. And I mean, that's a volatile culture. I mean, people, you're scared you're going to lose your job, and talk about rejection. Like, that's a pretty shitty feeling.
Yeah, I was actually at Chevron, and we did 3 rounds of layoffs, and I made it through the first 2. Then we actually knew we were going to lay off, but we had to finish a project. So we were basically working for that last 9 months, knowing that there was no job at the end of it. They just hung this big carrot of a severance package out for us to stick around. We finished the project, and literally I was like laid off like the day after the project was done.
Well, and I have to ask, going through these scenarios, were you able to find the silver lining?
I think it was a good eye-opening experience because I had seen the corporate success, I'd seen the business success, and you start to get a little bit complacent in there. I would say that my mid 30s to 40 is a good milestone age for most people. And we just start to reevaluate our lives. But it kind of pushed me into something where I needed to bet on myself and start working on the companies more than just working about a job. So I haven't had a salary job in the last 3 years. I work here at home, and I have clients, and I enjoy what I do now. I'm actually, 2018 was a restructuring for a couple of companies that I'm working on. And I would say without the consulting oil and gas salary or hourly that I was making for those, it was one of my lowest income years, 2018, but it was actually one of the happiest years at the same time.
Why?
Because
Prove to the audience that money doesn't buy happiness.
I think you'll find that most people, I mean, let's talk about, we always hear about millionaire, right? Like millionaire. But from someone who has been there, I'll tell you that $1 million is not a lot of money. Think about, no matter where you're living nowadays, it could be California versus Houston versus New York. Like $1 million could just be one small house nowadays. And that even cars are more expensive now. Like a decent car is now $40,000-$50,000 to start now. It seems like they're not $10,000 anymore. So you start to see that $1 million is really not a lot of money now. And like a lot of people think that I'll become a millionaire, I'm going to have a private jet, and I'll be driving around in a limo. And they just don't have this, they have this enamored view of that word versus reality. And I would say that if you think it's about popping bottles and like living large and having the penthouse, like you're going to need about 10 million in the bank to do something even close to that. So understand that each person that I've ever interviewed, even the people at the highest levels, no matter how successful they are, multi-millionaires, they never feel like they made it. They never feel like I've made it, because people who achieve those kind of levels, and I'll include myself in that we are very driven all the time. So we'll make it to a plateau. We start to reassess what our next goals are, and we're like, what's next? There's always what's next. It's never, and don't mistake that for not having gratitude for what we've accomplished or what we have. That's not true. We definitely have gratitude, but when you're severely driven and a high performer, you're always looking for the next thing. You're always looking to challenge yourself. and find that next level.
Well, I think for a lot of us, me especially, it's about getting outside of your comfort zone. So it's, like Nintendo, once you reach a level, you want the next level until you get to the end, which, So then you published a book last year, Side Hustle Millionaire. What was that all about?
Side Hustle Millionaire is a book that I've had in my head, honestly, for about 4 or 5 years, because it kind of goes back to the professional career and starting businesses on the side. I created my very first business back in 2001, and it was an online automotive community for performance cars. And I scaled and grew that company into one of the largest ones on the internet. And we were making multiple six figures profit per year on that website as a side job. And then I had an exit plan and we sold it to our larger online corporation for $2.3 million cash. So that became the basis of how you can become a millionaire as a side hustle. And it was a very unique story because I don't know anyone besides the business partner that I have who has ever achieved something like that. And I really started to look at the side hustle community and all these different podcasts and books on the subject. And they're really teaching people how to play small. Like, hey, if you can make $100 extra a month flipping stuff or $300 extra a month, you can make $1,000 extra a month. And I was like, man, there's people really playing small because that's based on manual labor type trading hours for dollars type business models. And I think really big on how to scale things internationally and where the entire world is your customer base rather than just your zip code. So how do I get that information out there? The best way is to compartmentalize that into a very portable and affordable book that I can share that knowledge, because not everybody can afford to work with me one-on-one, and I get that, but I want to serve millions of people and help them become better entrepreneurs. So that's why I write the book. So it's basically just to get the message out there.
Well, and what you touched on there was playing small. So I would love to dive into the topic of, fear of rejection and that inner critic, that voice, that chatter that keeps people playing small and in their comfort zone.
Picked up some static on that question, but I would say that the number one reason that most people make an excuse for starting the business is that, they think that I'm afraid of failure. We've all heard that. But what you'll find is the most successful people, we have scars to prove that we are okay, like taking on risk, and because we see the reward. So rather than start thinking about what happens if I fail, you're really going to start thinking about what happens if I win. And if the upside is far greater than the fail, like, oh, I start this business and let's say you spend a couple $1,000s and you do the startup of something and you fail. Like, okay, you lost a couple $1,000s. Is that the end of the world? No, it's absolutely not. But let's say you start that same thing up and you spend a couple $1,000s and it scales out to 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures, whatever. A lot of the biggest corporations started in people's garages, right? So when you start to look at the potential upside based on the business model that you're creating, you have to look at, wow, what if I win? And that's what you should be focused on rather than the losing. So here's the honest truth. Most people are not afraid of failing. They're really just afraid of what people will say about their failure.
Well, so let's really touch on that, the whole mindset, because I know how powerful mindset is. I have this, what I made, I literally had to, this was a wooden board and I had to break through it at a Tony Robbins event, actually. So I ended up keeping it, made a craft about it, but I know how important mindset is. So how do you go from that judgment, that fear, the doubt to fuck it, I'm going to go all in. I'm willing to fail, and I don't even believe in failure. I think it's lessons. But what do you do to push yourself?
I would say that I'm going to start back. A lot of people hear me and I'm very confident and I've achieved things, but I want to start back from when I was like in high school and junior high. I was more shy back then. I tried to fit in. And here's the thing that screws most people up. We go through the entire school system, whether it's public or private. We go through a school system being told to fit in and try to do what your friends do, like what your friends like, dress how your friends like, speak like them, don't stand out because you'll get ostracized and made fun of. So we're conditioned for the first 21 years of our life, our most, fundamental mental mindset creating part of our life. And we become adults. The problem is we're told to play safe. We're told to not stand out. We're told to just do what the crowd does, follow the herd, safety in numbers. And you realize that the people who have broken away and done things successfully, they're not the ones who follow the herd. They're basically the ones that become outstanding. And when you think of the word outstanding, it's literally standing out. So they don't build statues or name highways after people who are average. And when you start to think about all the greatest names that you can ever think of, they're the ones who went against the grain or were okay with sharing their actual opinions on subjects and a very strong and conviction, had a lot of conviction behind them. So you start to admire the people like that. But here's the thing that cracks most people, or cracks a lot of us up, is like, let's say you're at a concert, or you're watching something on a movie. We as people, we admire when people put themselves out there and get on stage. When you see that lead man of a band jamming to the microphone, or the movie star on the screen, you're like, man, that's so awesome. Like, that would be an awesome life. And like, you see this and you admire that quality about them being able to put themselves out there, but then you don't open that possibility up for yourself because you're worried about critics. You're worried about what people are going to say about you. You're going to be worrying about, can you make everybody happy? So the sooner that you start to think about, don't worry about making everybody happy anymore. Like, just screw that, because you're never going to make everybody happy. The sooner you can get that in your mindset, that that's part of reality. Because Heather, you could be the best person in the world. You could have all the greatest intentions. You could show love. You can show courtesy. You could be trying to genuinely change the world, and you're still going to have haters. You're still going to have critics. And the sooner that you're going to accept that that's part of the process as you climb, the faster you're going to be able to understand that, hey, if I got 10% critics, that just means I'm doing something that's worth noticing finally. And that's a funny thing as well, is because like people, you'll make these posts, because I'll tell you that when I talk about critics and haters on my social media posts, those get the most engagement because everybody feels that. Everybody can relate to that. But you'll have some people that think they're righteous. And they're like, oh, I don't have any haters. I don't have any critics. They think they're better than everybody because they don't have that. And my response to that is, you're just not doing anything worth noticing. You're
Right.
obscure. You're obscure. That's why you have no critics.
This actually reminds me. So, a girl I met here in Denver a couple of months ago, she told me how she has written this book. She's been sitting on it for 8 years, and she hasn't. I was like, why haven't you published your book? And she said, I kind of have a religious background, and I'm afraid of the judgment and criticism from her peer group. And I told her straight to her face, I said, you are going to be judged and criticized no matter what. You might as well give them something to talk about.
Man, yeah, that's a great philosophy that I also have too. And here's the thing, people: if you're sharing your authentic message and it's for good intentions, and your purpose is very strong on why you're doing the things that you do, you shouldn't care about what the critics say, because let's be honest, the worst critic that we have is ourselves. And we say some pretty hateful things about ourselves, probably on a daily basis. Everybody has some level of insecurity, whether that's an appearance thing or the things they're not doing, or they're calling out their own BS or their complacency or their fitness or whatever. We have a lot of things that we judge ourselves on. So we say a lot of things. We have this critic just running around in our head like all day long. So whenever there's external critics from the sidelines, like throwing rocks and doing, like, those don't even matter, because we've said things to ourselves that are a lot worse than they could ever say. So I don't really put any value into the things they say when my purpose is strong enough.
Two questions on that point then. What do you do? Is it a morning routine, or how do you combat that little inner critic, that little inner voice?
I would say, I hate to say it, it's probably a little easier for most men. We're able to really detach emotion from a lot of the decisions we make. Where I
Mhm.
know women tend to have more of an emotional response to stimulus or any kind of decision making. I'm an engineer as well, so I kind of have that I don't really have much emotion. I look at things as logical, and I'm very pragmatic, and I try to find the functionality of things. I try to reverse engineer my decisions, and I really I'm more logic sided. Although I have a very huge creative side, I'm very logic brained, where I can look and call myself out. It's really gaining the awareness of when you're being that person, when you're being that negative person. When you can find that you're being aware of being negative and you catch yourself doing it, now you're able to step one step back from the bigger picture. And you almost, it's funny how it's almost like you observe yourself as a character in your own movie. And when you see yourself acting like emotional or doing things that are not going to benefit you or get you close to your goal, you can kind of call yourself out on that bullshit. and go, wait a minute, where's the real logic here? Why am I feeling this emotion? And start paying attention to that. And I would say that that's a great way to practice. I'll give you a tip for people. Let's say like you're driving in your car and somebody cuts you off and you feel that anger, like it's an emotion. It's an emotional response to something that happened. And then you want to honk the horn or yell at them through your windshield, and you think that it's going to change anything, but it really doesn't change the outcome. The damage is done. You being angry is not going to resolve the problem. It's just really hurting yourself. You're going to ruin your day from something like that. You're going to gripe about it. You're going to think about it. Or you can be like, hey, why am I being such a reactive like jerk right now? Like, is it really going to change the outcome? No, it's not. So then the logic starts to step in and you go, well, let me practice here. I'm angry right now and I'm aware of that. Like, is it going to solve the problem? No. Then you're like, poof, then the anger just goes away. You're like, I'm not going to let this asshole like cut me off, ruin my day. But some people just can't let that kind of stuff go. So you have to become more aware and start to look for these triggers. Like, what makes you happy? Document that. What makes you angry? Document that. Is it going to change the outcome feeling either of these emotions? Possibly, maybe not. But when you start to understand that, you start to look at things beyond your control. Those are the things that you have to get over quickly. Like, you're not going to control it. Like, does no purpose like to stress over it or have anxiety over it, because you can't control it. It's not going to change.
Right. Well, and what I was thinking, since you are so analytical and kind of that coming from the masculine energy, for those with the feminine presence or those that are a little more emotionally tied, I was thinking, well, what do I do when I'm feeling that inner critic or the playing small? One thing I do is to step back and I ask, is this true? Will I fail? Or do they really think that about me? But so that's a powerful question. Is this true? Journaling, I think journaling is a huge pro, just to write your thoughts out. And then you can look at them and go, that's insane, like crazy. So yes.
Yeah, there's sometimes you look back even a year from now, and you look back at the things that you truly believed a year ago, and you're like, holy crap, like I actually believe that. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, it's awesome. Um, can you please touch on kind of the difference between feeling that fear and feeling the confidence, and how do you step into more of that confident role so that you can squash the fear?
Okay. That's actually one of the quotes in the back of my book that I actually put on there. It said, fear and confidence are both imaginary. We simply decide which one to live with.
Mm.
And you start to think about it. Fear and confidence are intangible. They're not something you could put your hands on. You can't go buy this and like put it in your pocket. It's just intangible. It purely exists in your mind. Either you have confidence or you have a fear. So when you start to thinking about that, you're like, wow, I can actually pick which one I want. And you start to go, wow, it is in my mind. And so here's the thing, like, confidence comes from repetition. I think a lot of times you build confidence when you don't lie to yourself. So I think that you have to be honest with yourself and call yourself out when you're doing things that aren't going to serve you or get you to your goal. And once you start to become honest and not lying to yourself anymore, now you can start to be more honest to other people. Because to me, I think you have to be confident and honest with yourself before you can really truly be honest and confident with other people. So practice that by taking these steps and putting these goals down. Write down your goals. Like, what are you going to do today? What are the things that you need to work on to get there? So when you start to achieve these things, you start to gain more confidence. Confidence comes from repetition and trusting yourself and trusting your ethical background and your values and understanding things. So I would say that you're going to gain confidence from repetition. You can't just decide to be confident, but it's a based on habits and where you're going. Fear, I'll tell you, like when I'm about to take the stage or I'm about to fire up a podcast or when I'm about to go on the radio, to me, you really have to look at the pros and cons again. It's kind of a way, like I like to get things back all the way down to a yes or no question. So when I look at what I have to do, what the task is, and even if it's a little bit uncomfortable, I look at why I'm doing things and I say, is my message more important than the fear of me sharing that? And that's actually what I'll tell myself before I take the stage. It's like, is my message more important than my fear of sharing it? Yes, my message is more important. And then all of a sudden I can focus on my message and my purpose and how come I'm there and why I'm going to do that and how I'm going to serve people, rather than, oh, I'm scared of doing that. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to trip. I don't, like, all these stupid fears that you think about. That's how I do it.
What I think what is so powerful, what you're saying is for those of us that are constantly putting content out and getting in front of people, we still feel the fear, but we do it anyway. I remember the first few Facebook Lives, I was so uncomfortable, but we keep pushing past it. So the whole confidence thing is building a muscle. It's repetition. We don't just wake up one day and we got it.
Yeah, I think that's a great word. Is if something's causing you anxiety or discomfort or some kind of a fear of doing, that's usually a great indicator of things that you should be working on. You know,
Yep, that's actually what I say is whatever you fear, whatever you're avoiding most, go towards it.
your dog wants to be on the show.
I know.
Good stuff. But yeah, to me, it's like start paying attention to those things that bother you. Start paying attention to those things that cause you that anxiety, and those are really catalysts and triggers. And you'll understand that you're not going to achieve growth or improvement until you can overcome that fear or whatever that's causing you that. So when you start to reframe, you just have to be more aware of your emotions. That's the most powerful indicator of everything that you should be doing. Like, why is this thing bothering me? Why is this task? Why do I keep procrastinating that? Because you know that the reward for those things, if accomplishing things or mastering that, are usually a lot more than all the little trivial tasks that you kind of bury yourself into all day thinking that you're being busy versus productive.
For sure. This has been powerful, and I really hope listeners get some takeaways, but I'd love to kind of wrap up the conversation with some rapid fire questions for you.
Awesome.
So one of my first ones is, what is a quote or motto that you live by?
Wow. You already made me use my original quote, so I can't use it again. So I don't really, I think for me, rather than a quote, I kind of look at a lot of different things and I enjoy a lot of the different motivational quotes. But for me, I really think about just one word, and it's consistency. And that is the number one word that's always been in my head, just showing up, putting in the work, consistently showing up, just doing what it takes. And you'll start to see the results from being consistent, because you'll find that a lot of times complacency or anything the opposite of consistency are the reasons why people do not get ahead. It's just, I just go back to that one word. So it's a real simple thing to remember for me.
Totally agree. Second one is, what advice would you give your younger self?
I actually gave my son, who's like a younger version of myself, this when he was probably 12, 13 years old. I told him being shy is a waste of time. And, that was me back at his age. It's like, being shy is a waste of time. If you want to change this world or do things incredible in this world, you have to learn to be a better communicator. You have to get over that fear of communication. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, put yourself out there, because you're not going to get any rewards hiding in the shadows. You're not going to get any rewards in life if you don't ask for things. You'll never get what you never ask for. So being shy is a waste of time. It's also costing you money if you're a business owner.
What is a book you're currently reading or that you've read and highly recommend?
I actually am reading right now called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. And it's a basically a bunch of short stories and examples of how sometimes the underdog actually had the advantage. We just didn't see it. So David and Goliath is one of the stories, and there he talks about how this small young guy, basically killed Goliath, the big, battle champion of the. It was two different armies, and they put out their best person to like basically combat to the death to decide who was going to win the outcome of that battle. And they send out Goliath. He's this giant human, and he's got armor and a giant sword and scary looking. And this younger man goes out there with like a satchel and 5 stones and a sling, and he's smaller and just doesn't look very intimidating. And he ends up winning the fight because he slings this rock and hits Goliath in the head and knocks him out. And then he cuts his head off, because it's like this original story. But when you start to break down all the clues of that story, you realize that what they call slingers back then, people that threw rocks, were like basically snipers with rocks back then, and they were intended on taking out infantry. So you start to see, he starts to deconstruct the strategy of why that actually, we should have known that David was going to win. So he has all these different cases on how people with there's a higher number of people with dyslexia who have achieved massive success versus people without dyslexia. Is because they've had to learn to adapt from that detriment that they had to get stronger in different areas and build their different areas of their life to be more aware and like different senses. So it's really interesting to start understanding like sometimes the underdog thing or the thing that holds you back is actually the thing that actually could make you very successful or achievement.
I love that story. And my last question for you, what is your final piece of advice for the listeners to battle their own inner critic?
I would say that you have to start thinking about critics as just part of the system. That if you're going to level up, if you're going to find success, if you're going to climb, you're going to have critics. Otherwise, you're not doing something worth noticing. And just kind of get over that and learn how to process that. Don't necessarily fight back. Sometimes you could just thank them for their feedback, and if you don't give them any attention, then they kind of go away sometimes. And if not, if you're talking about social media, you just block them if they get really annoying. Just you don't have to deal with it. Like remove negative people from your life, whether they're even your friends. Like observe your friends and your circles and understand that there's people out there that put these negative thoughts in your head whenever you want to share dreams with them. If they're not supporting you, they're not really helping you. And you got to do a really honest assessment of the people you put around and surround yourself with. And if you're not finding local people to hang around with that are positive, you can definitely find them on Facebook and groups. You'll find a lot more positive people online. But the main thing is to just really focus on getting past the critics. And then when you get to the inner critics, it's a lot easier because it's just having that vision, have a strong enough purpose that you're not going to quit when times get tough.
Yes. Great advice and insight. Tony, thank you so much for sharing your message with me today.
Hey, Heather, if anyone wants to reach me, just 365driven.com is my website, and you'll find links to all my socials and my book on that website.